in frame this evening, Matthew Sanford. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Fantastic. So Matthew is a author. Let's see, we met you some amount of years ago.
Something like 2 years ago?
2 years-ish.
Yeah.
At your book signing for the release of A Kid and Careless.
Yes.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It was exciting, yeah.
So that night, I got this really awesome book, and someone real special actually signed it for me.
That's my
Autographed
signature.
copy of this really awesome book. I know, it's a weird seeing your signature on a book. That came from my house. Anyway, so if you would like to start by just explaining what it is an author does, what the definition of it is.
I don't really know. Like, I didn't set out to be an author. Like, I never really thought about that. It's just that I like telling stories, and so I didn't really like. I was writing a lot, but never with like, I'm gonna be a writer for real. It's just that I had the idea for this book. At the time I was a screenwriter, and so I was writing a lot of like scripts and plays and stuff, but I knew that there was no way to accomplish what I had in my head with a script, and so I just started writing the story, and this came out of it. So I don't really know what like a regular writer does. I also do a bunch of other things, and so it's hard for me to really like kind of single out what like a writer does, because I just do my thing.
I mean, that makes sense, because there's not like which is why I guess I was a little unsure of how to ask the question, because there's not like a definition. It's definitely an art.
Right. Yeah.
Writing.
And Stephen King says like whenever you're writing or whenever you're not writing, you should be reading, and vice versa. Like, he is so driven on like books all the time, and obviously he plays guitar and does other stuff too, but that's what he has a passion for, and I just can't do that. Like, I am sometimes writing and sometimes I'm doing other things, and I haven't written for weeks or months, and so it was, yeah, it's just kind
so
of.
your downtime is not like with your nose stuck in a book?
No, not really. I'm a very slow reader.
So that's why you write.
Right, exactly, yeah.
It's good reading. I'm just kidding. Okay, so you weren't really, how did you get started down this path? And you were just writing, you were doing screenplays. Nothing came of those? Do you have just a whole bunch of writing in your backlog that you've never done anything with?
Yes, this is the first thing that I've actually like seriously pursued to its fullest extent. I never really, I've always been writing, but as a kind of as a hobby, but never anything that I like got published or like really got into. So
I'm really interested to know how you actually get a book published.
So I never thought about self-publishing. Again, I never set out to be a self-publisher. It's just whenever I went to like, there was a program that you could self-publish, and it was like you could buy a package and they gave you marketing things. They gave you like an ISBN, the barcode. They gave you kind of just like the kind of the publishing package, but you could do it. And whenever I started breaking down like what are all of the steps to get it published, I realized like I could do all of these things. Like, obviously, like marketing does a lot, and there's no way that I don't have the base to like really sell it, and get it like commercials and get it like on the best-selling list. Like, obviously I couldn't do that, but even if I were under a publishing company, I wouldn't be able to be successful with any of that anyway. So I just kind of didn't go down that path, and I just started to, you have to like make it legal. You have to get a copyright for it, like send that off. And so there's a bunch of like weird stuff like that. You have to get it really edited like professionally, which I guess I didn't really do that either. So I just like read it hundreds of times and tried to read it from all these different angles, from like reading it as like from certain perspectives, and then fill out a bunch of paperwork. And
so you edited that book on your own?
Yes.
Wow.
I had a couple of other people read it and give me like feedback as far as what worked and what didn't. But as far as the grammatical stuff, the like everything that an editor does, it was all me. Like other than the artwork, everything in that book is my work.
Who did your artwork?
woman named Caitlin Dickens. Her name is now is Caitlin Frenchco, but Caitlin Dickens is still her artist name, and we've been friends ever since like kindergarten. So she's always been drawing pictures, and I love her drawing. So
it's very fitting. It looks fantastic.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
She originally came up with the idea with the watercolors because it looks a little bit more magical.
Mm-hmm.
But her husband got her whenever she first started out. He got her a really good set of pens, and so she incorporated pointillism, like all of these little dots that kind of give it a really good texture and really like, yeah, it makes it look really, really good, and it gives it a really nice energy to it too.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I mean, you look at the cover of it and it's just like, I definitely need to figure out what this book's about, right? I mean,
that's what I think, and I tell her all the time, like I get to see people like look at it and go, oh wow, this is awesome. And I'm like, yes, it is. It looks awesome. I mean, you don't know what it is on the inside, but it does look very appealing.
Right. I mean, and that is, the exact reason why I read it. Because, we came obviously just to see you, to say hey, to support, our
yes, thank you.
Our local authors. But I mean, we got this book and I was like, I'm gonna do this. Obviously, gotta read it now. But yeah, so you've just been writing your whole life. There was no specific thing that pushed you down this path. There was no influencers or...
Not really. And in addition to writing, I've always been drawing and playing music and doing all of these...
You're just an artist all the way around.
That's always what I've defined myself as like an artist.
Okay.
I never wanted to call myself a musician or a writer or a painter or anything. For years, I was an actor. I studied to do that. So that was the one title that I felt like I could claim, but everything else I was like, oh no, I paint pictures or I take pictures or I paint or play music.
I write some things on a piece of paper.
It's just like and for the longest time I wanted to I pushed that away and tried to focus on one single practice. Mm-hmm. But now I just allow the ideas to manifest however they want. If it's a song, if it's a book, if it's a short story, if it's a painting, whatever it is. I don't push it away anymore, and I just say like, what is that, and what is this idea that, and yeah, like this was originally, I think just like a one single story book, but the more I started to get into it, the more I realized like, oh no, this is going to be like a science fiction novel. I didn't know if magic was there, so it wasn't like that was just the one thing that I loved to do. It was just kind of this rabbit hole that.
Well, I was gonna ask if you just kind of write anything and then it fits into a genre kind of along the way, or do you specifically write science fiction at this point? Or
I mean, not really. I'm not great at fiction. I don't know why. It's just I have one fiction novel that I'm working on, but other than that, I've really never had fiction stories come to me. Mm-hmm. I have this one that's very much more fantasy, science fiction. I just wrote a book that is absolutely science fiction, but it's not like I set out to do that. It's just that the idea, however it comes to me, that's what it becomes.
You just go with it. It turns.
Yeah.
Okay. So how long does it take you to write a book? I mean, specifically this one, and just kind of in general, if you set out to write a book, do you have like a time frame plan?
Not exactly. With the first book I did, with publishing, this one I did, but I learned not to put myself on like a very strict schedule, because then I would start to get freaked out of like, oh no, this is coming up and I haven't done this, especially just because there's so many like pieces that need to fit in. This one took 7 years, but that was also to build the whole series. So the series will be 6 books, and so I was planting seeds in this book so that I could pick up on them later and really know where I was sending this story. So that it was really the 7 years writing the whole, not necessarily the whole thing, but at least kind of putting into
coming up
place.
With the image of the.
Exactly.
That's a lot of seeds to plant, attention to detail. I can only imagine. Obviously, I have no real clue, but okay.
But the second book, that one's, I don't know when I started on it, so I don't know how long it's taken. And it's finished. I'm working on the editing process. I actually just started reading it again for like the first real, first edit through. But I would say it took probably 2 years to write in total.
So did you take a break in between them? You released this, published it, did all those things? Did you intentionally just kind of stop for a little while, or?
Yes and no. I was whenever this was still, well, this was finished for like 3 years before I actually was able to publish it, just because it took a while to get the paperwork filed and all of that.
You were figuring out how to publish your own book.
Yeah, exactly. How to figure out all of that. And also it was complicated with the artwork, just because the picture size needed to be exactly right. And like the pixel size, like it was down to like a decimal point. And I would get rejected from the printer, and I would have to talk to my illustrator and say, hey, this is a little bit different. She would send me a picture. I would have to send it back. They would have to reject it. So it was just this constant like back and forth that took forever to get started, to get it to this point. So in that time, I was writing the second book.
Mm-hmm.
So I got like a jump start on it, but yeah.
Okay. So slow process getting started, and then
yes, especially my way of processing it, of just like let it go whenever, or let it be inspired whenever I need to be inspired.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask about your actual writing process, but it's just very relaxed. You just kind of let things come. There's no such thing as writer's block. You don't put that kind of like pressure on yourself.
Yes and no. That writer's block exists, but I don't think that it's an excuse. Like the first book, I'd made myself write 1,000 words a day. And I mean, I sometimes got 500, sometimes I got 1,500, but I really tried really, really hard to get that 1,000 words a day. Sometimes I would like miss a day or whatever, but it kept me on the path. And I especially like relearned that with NaNoWriMo in November, that I like just write through that writer's block. Even if it's crap that you're writing, write through it anyway, and that's more words that you have. Mm-hmm. So the second book, I wasn't nearly as like staunchly on that schedule, so it took a lot longer time to finish. And I feel like that I definitely lost some time, or gained some time.
So what do you do if you're writing and you're writing through, even if you feel like it's crap, whenever you go back and read, do you go back and change all of those things that you felt like weren't great at the time? Or do you go back and reread and say, I don't even know why I felt like this was crap. That was awesome. I was on it.
That's the fear a lot of times of like not wanting to write, is because I don't want to like get so deep inside a really deep hole that's not going to go anywhere. Mm-hmm. That going back and changing it later is, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Similar kind of thing of like I never write like the scene, like I never write out of order. Like I start, like it's just a very linear process of like I only write if I write a future scene, and then getting to that point, it's always I don't know, it just doesn't fit right. So this part that I had written before, this other piece won't fit into it. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's like I have to just like move forward, and if something's not working, then I have to figure out what to do. So a lot of the times, if I get one of those 500 word days, I'm really discouraged, but at least I know that those are 500 words in the right direction, and I'd rather work through that than just get to that like 1,000 words or 1,500 words and be like, okay, I got my goal, but now I'm gonna have to go back tomorrow and undo it all. So as much as I like to stick to that, a lot of times I'm like, okay, I can't do it today. So it is a little bit more loose.
Okay, head somewhere else, not the day.
Yeah, exactly.
I do want to ask you, so can I see your arm?
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
have the really cool tattoo, especially this side here.
Yes.
Would you mind reading and kind of talking about where this came from?
It says, does this need to be said? Does this need to be said by me? And does this need to be said by me now? And then this says words or shells. This comes from the comedian Craig Ferguson, who, I don't know, has just been a big idol in my life. But he has a whole bit about, these are the 3 things you're supposed to ask yourself before you say anything. Because now with Facebook and with social media, we have a crazy angry thought and we can type it out. Absolutely. And then it's out there. Mm-hmm. Versus he goes through this whole bit about like in the ancient times, like you had to learn to read and write, and you had to go and find paper, and you had to like make ink, and you had to like write this whole thing, and then like 3 years to say the statement, and by the end of it, you're like, I'm just gonna let it go.
Right. You actually had to go through the whole process to take the time to
exactly
realize you shouldn't be saying it in the first place.
So that's the simplistic answer to it.
Mm-hmm.
The more in-depth version is that it's kind of goes up to the veins that kind of connect to my body, and it's written out like on notebook paper because I'm a writer, because that like whenever I'm editing or whenever I am releasing, whenever I'm reading through, I'm like, okay, is this exactly what it needs to be? Is this really what I want to say? Is this really the if I publish this, is this what I want to say? And a lot of people say that, like, whenever they see it, they say, oh, I don't need that filter. Like, I just say what I want to say. And it's not saying that you shouldn't do that. You should, I mean, it's not saying that you should say things that you will regret later, but at least you need to ask yourself that question.
And I believe, authors, writers, you guys have such a platform. I mean, I think you should be asking yourself, is this something I need to say? Is this something the world needs to hear? Is this, who I want to be and portray and encourage? So that's awesome. I really love that tattoo. It's great.
Thank you.
So let's talk about your future a little bit. You said that this is one of 6.
Yes.
You're working on
The
2 or
second.
3. You're working on 2 right now? And what's it called?
Darvis and Her Dungeons.
Dungeons. So does it play into this? Is it just the world, or does it play into the same characters?
It is what happens like 6 months after the end of this book. So the series, the 6 books that I'm going to finish, all center around this one character, this one storyline. I kind of see each like 2 separate trilogies. So it will follow this main storyline, but eventually I want to go back and tell the history of how Kirlith was founded, how all the heroes and villains that have come out through the years, and just describe. Or I want to do another series that's like set in the future that will be Kirlith based, but not the same characters. But yeah, for these 6 books, it will just follow this one single storyline, this one single character of Simon.
Well, that's awesome. I can't wait to read them.
Well, thank you.
Super excited. So where did this world come from? I mean, is it really just something that popped up in your head? I mean, it seems so like just somewhere else to me. And I love it because it's great to sit down and read and just go somewhere else. It's awesome.
Yeah,
that's the whole point of fantasy, right?
Yeah, I want to take people to this world. And it's a very unique world too. And the way it started, and I'm sure I've romanticized it a lot now, but I kind of wrote it into the book. In the very beginning, Simon is looking out on this out of the across these like trees, and he sees a perfect like circular cloud in the sky, and he can't see the shadow on the ground. And there's a reason it's different in the book, but that actually happened. I was working at Barnes & Noble one day, and out on the patio there was like, you can see trees for miles. And it was like right before I opened up, and I was like still like kind of sleepy, so I was in this like dreamy state, and I did see a perfectly circular cloud and nothing else in the sky, and I didn't see the shadow on the ground. It was like in between these 2 valleys. So I thought, what if there was a little tiny hidden city right there that needed a cloud for one reason or another, that in this one like cylinder of space, like they needed a cloud, and like maybe they needed it to rain or whatever, and so they needed, because it was just so weird to see this one circle of cloud in the middle. And that one idea led me down the path of like, I didn't know if they evolved differently. I didn't know if the scientists like ran away and started making something. I didn't know what the story was. Magic kind of came into it later, but that's kind of how I got the idea. And then once I got the ball rolling, it was just like, it just kept going and going and going.
So thank the strange cloud for inspiration.
Yes,
that's a really cool way to start a book. I mean,
well, thank you.
Or start down a rabbit hole that takes you to a book.
Right.
I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you being here
and
talking with you. It's been great getting to know you a little bit better.
Yes, it's been great.
So, I mean, do you have anything to say to inspiring writers?
Just do it. Just get out there. That's one of the things. NaNoWriMo was great because you have to write 50,000 words during the month of November, and it works for every kind of artistic practice. It's just like, get out there and do it. If you're scared, if you have writer's block, don't make excuses. Like, don't like run yourself into the ground to the point where you hate it. But it's a lesson that I keep needing to learn too. Is just do it. Like, just follow it, and also to not limit yourself to just one thing. If you're a writer and you kind of have a song in your head, try that. See where that path takes you.
Yeah. Okay, I like it. Good advice. So do you want to talk a little bit about where people can find your information, if your book, if they're interested in reading or following you around? I don't know what people do these days.
So the website curelith.com is where all things Curelith related will be. I'll have the information about.
Oh, it's on your shirt.
It is.
You got it on your shirt.
Yeah.
Nice.
Get lost in the city at curelith.com. As far as everything else I've got going on, I own a company named 60 Matthews that is also a YouTube channel that does everything else that I do that's not Curelith related. Any kind of books, any kind of game development. I live in a van, so any type of like van building is located there. So all the rest of my non-Curelith related stuff, and also Curelith related stuff too, is all centered in the brand 60 Matthews.
Okay, awesome. Well, it was a pleasure having you here.
It was a pleasure being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I mean, geez. But I really hope, what has inspired you will inspire others.
Please.
Right, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.